Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to day 2. So I loved seeing everyone's pictures and posts and sharing about what they love about themselves in the groups. Thank you to all of you that participated in day 1. It's also not too late if you're just getting into this right now. You can do 2 action steps in a row. So go back, watch day 1, do that action step, and I'm gonna go ahead and hop into today's action step because again, commitment to being concise, right? So yesterday we talked about how we are seeing ourselves. And today we are actually going to talk about how we are talking about ourselves. So hi Sunny, thank you for tuning in. We all have an inner critic, right? An inner mean girl, an inner bully. And sometimes it can feel like that voice runs the show. Can anyone else relate to that? That voice is making decisions about how we actually show up in the world. In fact, this voice is something that I actually spent a lot of time deconstructing with my clients because it's really ultimately that voice that's holding them back in their lives. It's really never about their bodies or the weight. It's about that voice in their head that's telling them that they aren't worthy, that they're not good enough, right? Good morning, Josh. Thank you for tuning in. So today we're actually going to create some awareness around that inner critic, and we're going to do an exercise to transform that voice so that it's no longer running the show. And yesterday I told you with the picture exercise just to notice with curiosity what, if any, judgments were coming up for you around that photo that you took. Right? So if you notice maybe one of your eyes was lopsided or you felt like you looked tired in the photo, whatever it might be, just notice with curiosity. And I did that so that you would have a starting place for today. Because today's exercise has 3 steps. So the first step is to become aware of your inner critic. And you would do that by just setting a timer for maybe 2 minutes. We're not going to spend too much time here, but about 2 minutes, and just writing down the words or the phrases that you use to describe yourself. And this is really being done from the inner critic's perspective. So these are the judgments that you have towards yourself and towards your body and your appearance. The second step is to understand where those voices came from, where those phrases, where those words came from. So ask yourself, whose words are these? Does this sound like a parent? Does this voice sound like maybe a school teacher or an ex-partner? Did you maybe hear it in a commercial or read it in a magazine? Or is it something that you just feel like is society at large? It's just a collective belief, right? So what we're doing here in this action step is that we're actually creating space between you and the belief or the word, right? So what we're starting to do here is understand that it's actually not your truth. And so we're creating space between you and the belief. The third thing to do, and this is where the transformation actually happens, is to either reframe or release it. And so with that awareness, you can choose to reframe or release. And I'm going to give you an example of what a reframe and what a release is. So for the reframe, I have a client who, one of the words that she used to describe herself was fat. And so for some people, fat can actually be really an empowering word. And I know that might seem like a foreign concept, but to her, that was really disempowering. It made her feel really bad about herself. And so when she started to create awareness around it, she realized that when she said those words to herself, it was actually the voice of her mother, who had on many occasions called her fat. And so she realized that this was not her truth. This was not something that she wanted to use to describe herself. And so she reframed fat with an acronym of I am fabulous, authentic, and talented, which I loved so much. I've had other clients who use this word to describe themselves, reframe fat to I take up space in the world, or I take up all the space that I need to take up, or my presence is large and powerful, right? So there's so many different ways that you can reframe that word. So that's an example of a reframe. Or you could choose to release it. So I had another client who was always calling herself bigger. And this is something that I noticed from the work that we did, from just starting the work. I'm like, you use that word a lot. I'm just bigger. I'm bigger than everyone. And she recognized that it was something she had actually embodied. And she remembered being a little kid and having people say, well, you're just bigger than all the other kids. You're bigger. And it was really, really disempowering for her. And she felt like it made her different, and it felt like it was almost a role she had to play, was to be bigger, right? And so when she tuned into this exercise and she wrote down that word and she just started to create that space between her and that word, she realized it was not her truth. It was something that she didn't want to use to describe herself. She didn't believe to be true. And so she decided that she was going to release it. And there's so many different ways that you can release it. This client specifically chose to write it down and light it on fire, which is a personal preference of mine. But there's so many different ways that you can do it. I have other clients who write the word and just choose to journal about it and say, I'm choosing to release this word, and this is how I'm choosing to describe myself instead. Or you might do a visualization and picture the word and maybe see it melting into the background, or seeing it maybe fly away in a neutral way, right? So there's so many different ways that you can release it, but the intention here is to know that it's energetically no longer yours. So those are the 3 steps. Write down the words that your inner critic is using to describe you, understand where those words came from, and decide to reframe or release it. And the proof for today is there's a couple different ways that you can do that, because I also get that these words might be very personal and it might feel really vulnerable to share it in the group, and you are welcome to do so. So there's 2 ways that you can prove today. You can either share one of your inner critic words and the reframe or release in the group, or you can choose to write about what that experience was like for you. So when you did the reframe and release, what did it feel like for you to do that? And you don't have to share any specifics if you don't want to. And then of course, because solidarity and encouragement are the best, comment a word of encouragement on at least 3 of your fellow participants' posts. And that's it. You also might be feeling at this point that the voice of your inner critic, there's no way that it couldn't be true, right? You're like, no, that is true. These are things I know to be true about myself. And even if they're horribly disempowering, right? And so if you are feeling that way, now is the time to get on a call with me, because everyone does have access to a 30-minute call with me to use either during this challenge or up to 2 weeks after. And what we can do in that call is that I can help you reframe or release those beliefs, because my friends, any negative self-talk that's happening up here, I'm here to tell you that it is not true. And that's it. Okay, so that was day 2. Can't wait to hear from each of you how this experience was for you. I'm sending you all so much love, and I will see you in the group throughout the day and also back here tomorrow for day 3. Mwah! Bye, everyone.